Hi everyone, this is Ted Simpson, Certified Bob Ross Instructor. It is another great day. Let's throw up some paint here and see what painting we can produce. I've got my dry 16 by 20 set in landscape style. I thought I would show you guys how I put on my liquid white. So I'm dipping my 2-inch brush, getting a little bit out there. That jar is by my own hand leaking a little bit. So, a little bit of color. I just like to either tap it all around the canvas or just give it a couple of good swipes. And then I just start spreading it. It's really important that you have some good light, especially if you're using a very light canvas like this. It's all pure white. Now the Bob Ross canvases are slightly gray, so it's a little easier to see the white. But when you're using more of the student grade canvas, just turn your head to the side, let the light reflect off of it, and you should be able to see what's shiny and wet and what still needs just a little bit more. One of the biggest things I tell my students, this has got to be one of the most important steps here. You want to make sure that you have just a thin, even coat. Okay, so get brisk with it. Get a little aggressive and just grind that paint in and spread it out, making sure you get all the way to the edges and the corners. The paint likes to not go there, you know. It's the easiest spots to miss, I should say. So, very light touch with your finger, and as long as you see a little fingerprint on your finger, it's not pure white, you should be good to go. There's a pretty wide range of what's going to be okay, but we want to make sure that we see our finger through the paint. Alright, let's do something wacky here today. A little bit of the Indian yellow. Beat that paint into the bristles. Just some light crisscross strokes. Look at that. The more you go over it, the more it softens. And if you use liquid white, of course, lightens. If you cover your entire canvas with liquid clear, that color stays a little truer. That's what I did in my last video, which was the golden glow. It's time-lapsed on my YouTube feed there. So I'm going to clean that brush. I'm going to set it aside. I'm going to use a different brush altogether. I don't know why I'm feeling a little rushed. I don't know why. Trying to get this in before lunchtime, maybe. A little bit of Prussian blue. Now I'm going to drop that in right at the top. There we go. Want to get it a little bolder at the top. And as I start working my way down, just want it to sort of fade away a little bit before it hits that Indian yellow. Why, do you ask? So we don't get green. Okay. Change up my stroke to go a lot lighter, and you take out those brush marks. You can blend it as much as you like, but then just a couple of light touches softens it. Now maybe I've got a little bit of mountain mixture here. Yeah, nice darker blue, crimson, black, brown mixture. Maybe. Look at that. Instant cloud. Instant cloud. Wipe most of the paint out of the brush. Go over it with a feather touch and it will soften it a little. Maybe beat the easel a little bit. And whatever I still have in my brush here, I'm just sort of fading out this transition. I don't really have any paint in my brush. Just trying to create transition from the yellow up to the blue. Well, that cloud was pretty fun. Let's try another one. Kind of like that. A little bit darker, a little more paint. Look at that. All right. Get that color on there. Soften it a little bit. Leave it alone. Look at that. Super simple sky in just a moment or two. All right, so a quick tip time. I haven't done this. I didn't really prepare, but I've got my bucket and I've got a Ziploc bag. Put the Ziploc bag in your thinner bucket. That way, when you put your screen in, you're messing with all the paint, you know, that you're not completely destroying your bucket. You'll only get the all the residue in the bag. All right. Let me pour some of the good thinner. All my dirty thinner I put into a resting bucket. After a few days, I pour the good stuff off and you can use it again. That's a tip for you, from me to you. That way, I can swirl my brush in the bucket, back and forth, lightly scrape against that screen. Shake it. I know you can't see it, but you can hear it. Then I've got my beater bucket over here, which is just a waste paper basket with a piece of pipe running through it. Can't do Bob style here without beating the bucket. Beating the devil out of the brush. Make sure I get all that paint thinner off and wipe some of that, oh yikes, liquid white off my hands and arms. And now we've got ourselves a clean, dry brush. I'll clean this one later. Okay, mountain time. The cool thing about that mountain mixture, it's already pre-made for you right in the tube. But you can also change it a little bit. Maybe I'll make it a little duller by adding some brown to it. Not all of it. Really darkens it down. Let me show you what that looks like. This is what I just made here. And this is what the mountain mixture looks like with no brown in it. Oof, looks about the same. Didn't really change it that much. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Creates a little bit grayer look to it. Oh, gosh, I hate that noise. So we've got a little bit grayer mountain mixture here. Pull it out nice and flat. Scrape off a little roll of paint. And let's build ourselves a mountain. This mountain here is going to be, something like that. Not a super pointy peak, unless you want it to be. Ooh, look at that. I like to scrape away the excess, and it actually gives you a little bit of a roll on the knife, and you can just continue on down. And I always try not to cover up all of that background yellow. We took so much effort putting it in. Let's see a little bit of it kind of peeking over our mountain tops. This one here, like I said, don't really want a bunch of super pointy peaks. I just sort of round those over a little. So I want a little color down here. See that? That's really not that much, but if you just press some paint into the fabric and then scrape away the residue, what's left is just the right amount. All right, let's change this a little, and this kind of sort of meanders down here a little bit. And a little bit more. Maybe we'll have another peak there. Ooh, big mountain scene. Just playing around here, getting that color worked into the fabric, and then most of it gets scraped away. Trying to sort of manage that interesting edge. I don't just like triangles up there. Just vary it up a little bit as you see fit. There we go. Okay, so just going to take that 2-inch brush, gently press in, collapse those bristles a little bit, and start bringing it down. The trick is you're picking up the paint here on your brush here at the top, and you're just using that whatever's in your brush to fill in the mountain, and it automatically gets lighter as we go down. Don't really have to worry about anything else than just filling in the basic shape here. Maybe this mountain's going to be a little bit more vertical right there. Very cliff-like. Okay. We could always have a little peak in front of it too. We don't know. Just showing you the basic strokes here. You don't have to decide right now. Clean off some of the excess paint should you build up too much. Just create some mist and fog here at the base. All right, I like it. There's a lot going on there. Maybe these two peaks kind of connect here. I don't know. I like that. Okay. Let's take our titanium white. Wow. Really thick, firm color. Pull that out a couple of times. And get another paper towel here. Wipe that knife. Okay. Very light. 2 fingers and a thumb is typically what I use, you know. You can bring your other fingers down to help support it. But you want to hold that knife very light. Find the angle here where just a little bit of that paint touches. We don't want to come in here and just start like buttering toast. We want to just lightly float this paint off. And then most importantly, look what happens here. Look at how much paint that I pick up on the roll. Wipe it away. Get a new roll of color. I like to get a new roll just about every stroke that I do. Very lightly, feel that paint just sort of tear off. And you don't have to do giant swipes all at once. Give yourself a little break here and just try putting a little bit out there at a time. Like little tiny pats. Pat, pat, pat. Very light. See that? Very light. Those longer strokes will come with practice. And as you run out of paint, you're allowed to get a little bit flatter to get a little bit more to come off. But it's still an incredibly light touch. Now we've got our main peak up here. Get right up to that edge. You feel that paint stick. Just sort of give that knife a little wiggle. jiggle. And you're going to have to clean up your palette space here and pull some more down a couple of times. Nothing wrong with that. Make sure you get a nice little roll of paint. You know, because I have this little flat space here, maybe I'll use the small edge of my knife just to get this started. That long edge of the knife is a little too long right there. Now that I got that there, oh, now I can get at it. Look at these light little pets, light little touches. Working my way down, letting there be some background colors remaining. Oh, you might have heard the dog barking there. She is a barker. All right. Now, we're not doing the whole mountain here at this point. We're just getting it started, getting roughly half of each mountain peak in there. You know, we're not going to worry about it too much. I'll tell you what. Let's make a little bit of shadow color. I've got some of my background color, but mostly white and Prussian blue. Scrape it up, spread it out. Let some of it be kind of streaky here and there. Wipe your knife clean. Let's get a little roll. Maybe we'll work a little bit back and forth on these peaks here. A little bit of shadow color, but working right next to the highlight, pulling the opposite direction. And then you can always come back if you need to there. Maybe drop in a different highlight to there to the top. But when you drop in the new highlight, give that new highlight its own special shadow. There we go. Now, I did a little bit here on my main peak. Look at that. We'll just sneak a little bit of shadow in here. Anywhere where there's a bright highlight with nothing on the other side, sneak a little shadow in there. Small edge of the knife lets you sneak into those tight spots. There we go. Now we're kind of doing this little hidden ridge line here, so very light touch and just gently pulling down. You can get some different effects by going more vertical with the knife edge. You can cover more ground holding it horizontal. I think in this one here, Bob actually had a little bit of dark shadow, some Prussian blue kind of snuck in there, pure Prussian blue. It's up to you. I'm doing a little bit more than I need here because I'm gonna bring this on through with the highlight color in just a minute. Maybe there was a little bit way back there. I don't know. I thought there was. A little bit more right there. Now, I come back to my highlight color. We can just bring that right on through. Oof, this This knife is a little bit interesting here today. There we go. Not really worrying about it, just drop this color in. We can always make adjustments here. I think this peak is really in front, huh? Maybe it gets a little broken up right here. This mountain face is sort of jutting out here and there. Put out those little bits. Give it a little shadow. Just working the light against the dark, dark against the light, little bits of shadow, always working the opposite angle of the highlight. Okay, let's see here. Let's get in a little shadow over here. And then maybe a little highlight kind of zinging out here. Just playing the angles. Okay. Shadow. A little easier sometimes with that small edge. There we go. Then you can use the big edge. Maybe I should have said short and long instead of big and small, but I think you know what I mean. Bring some of this lower. One extra tip if you've managed to watch this far. Make some of these mountain snows lower. Like, do you see how much lower down on the canvas I am here than there? Automatically creates a sense of distance here. So you can always adjust this. But changing up the angles like that, changing up the size of the mountain, always fun, always effective. Okay, we've got most of that mountain in there. Let's create a little bit of mist. Just tapping and lightly sweeping from the bottom up. Follow the same basic angles of your peaks. And then I like to do these little crisscrosses at the bottom. Get a couple here on the shadow side if you've got some. I don't really have a lot of shadow down here in between my peaks, so don't really need to go the other way so much. There we go. How much mist in there is up to you. Almost forgot. I almost forgot we might need a little bit of water down here. I don't know how much of this we're going to cover up, but I think we have some water in this one. Well, we do now, don't we? Okay, let's see what we got. Let me do a little bit of cleanup here. Put my white back up there. Let's get this shadow color out of our way. Clean up our Prussian blue a little bit. Now, if you just take a relatively clean paper towel, give it a little buff, dry, you don't need any paint thinner, just give it a little buff, and look at that, we've got a nice clean space to work with again. Okay, let us take our mountain mixture. I'm going to add a touch more of the blue, touch of green, touch of both browns. Just mixing up some color here. Scrape it all onto one side of the knife, then just pull it down and get it all off the knife. Scrape it up, smear it out. Scrape, scrape, swoosh. There we go. And that is mixed enough. Don't need to spend 20 minutes doing it. There we go. Let us try, my favorite, the black-handled oval brush. Tapping a little bit of color. And let's create some foothills. One of the cool things about leaving some open space in the mountains is it makes the foothills go in that much easier. When you're not tapping over tons of highlight, it just makes this a little easier to get in. Bring this forward here, as much or as little as you want. Tapping the paint in. We don't need a great deal of color there. As long as it's relatively horizontal. If anything, we want it a little lower on the canvas to create this kind of a peninsula effect. If it's all flat, I think it looks a little flat. You bring this lower a little bit, just helps add a little extra dimension to it. Then, using my 2-inch brush, mostly clean, I grab a little bit of it and pull it down. Press in and let that brush sort of flick down. Press in, let it trail away. There we go. Need a little more color? Just pull some across. Pull some of it down the canvas and then very lightly with a cleaner brush drift it sideways just to blur it a little bit. There we go. Now, I still have that dirty old brush. Let's see what color it makes when I add yellow to it. A little bit of yellow. Ooh, look at how it creates that yellow-green. I dull it a little bit. Look at how I'm tapping. See that? One side of the brush, just tapping, and the bristles sort of move forward just a little bit. You don't really have to force it. I pull some color, work it, and then tap it. I want some paint right up there on the tips of the brush. Now, if you don't have very much paint here in the darks, this should come off. Let's give it a try and see what happens. Brush is a little bit below center, and I tap. Look how it just sort of fades away the more I tap it. Reload. Adding some highlights here, not very much. Not very much. This is too far away to see a great deal of detail. Pull some color down, tap it in. Let the brush do the work for you. Just tapping, moving the brush from side to side with your arm. That's important. We don't like to turn and twist or spin the brush. If it's having a hard time coming off, I add literally a drop of the liquid white. Just a drop. That will loosen it a little bit and let it come off. Ooh, look at how quickly that comes off. You see that? What's our rule? A thin paint sticks to a thick paint. And look at that. We can create a whole nother ridge line here with just a little bit thinner color. Good deal. All right, using a touch of the liquid white, whoop, look at that, smears it perfectly. If it's not pure white, it's not a problem. cut across or tap, whichever way works for you. We want the paint on the leading edge of the knife, not the sides. I always like to go light. We can always add more, but we don't want like thick, dripping stripes of white. Just a little indication of the shoreline back there. Always level, always level. There we go. And if it's having a hard time coming off, yeah, you can go across it with a little bit more. I'd rather you have to go across it again than try to take paint away when you load too much. You know, it's easier to add more than take off. There we go. Now, let me just swirl out that highlight here. I'm trying to think if trying to look, do I have an extra brush here? I don't have an extra black-handled brush here, so I'll be cleaning it and going from lights to darks, darks to lights. Oh, I do have another one right here. Well, I guess I got two clean ones now. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Well, let's see what we got here. I thinks. I might have to make more color. We'll see. I think I have enough to make a couple of evergreens here. I'll make these evergreens. Ooh, look at this little fan brush. This is the number 3 fan brush. Load lots and lots of color in this nice wedge. And right across that cool bit I wanted to save. Perfect spot to drop in an evergreen. All right, tapping with the corner of the brush. Get something started here. As I work down the tree, I'm tapping from the center out. Loading that brush as I need to, letting the bristles bend. The bristles will form the shape that they want. And what looks good. They'll do that automatically if you let them. There we go. Not going any further than that. Let's give them a buddy. Perfect spot there, right where there's not paint. You try going over that highlight, and more often than not, you start to mix, and it starts to muddy out. But if you find those spots where there's not as much, well, it just makes your life a little easier. You can get them to go over, and don't get me wrong, you just need a lot of paint and a good pressure. There we go. A couple of trees there. What do you say, a third one? Why not? This just kind of creates a little bundle here, a little family of evergreens. As long as they're mostly dark. Yeah, nice and dark. That's all we're really looking for. A basic shape, nice and dark. Okay. Maybe with a little bit of that color. There'll be some bushes right at the bottom of them. Something like that. There we go. And what do we do now? Let's go ahead and have some fun with these trees. Add a touch of the brown, a touch of the dark sienna, and then create kind of a swirl of white, brown, brown, white. Create a little trunk on these. Touch, touch, doing the highlight and the shadow at once. You can do the browns and then a nice highlight to them if you want to. Separately, I just kind of felt like doing them together here. As long as you see a little bit out there, that's good enough. Now I've got another fan brush here. Let's see if I got a smaller one to match the brush that I used. There we go. Nice, clean, fairly new one too. Let's see here, a little bit of the liquid white. Ooh, that was a lot of liquid white. So I go into my yellow, grab a little green, lots of paint worked up into those bristles, pulled nice and smooth. And we'll create some highlights. I say this tree's going to be in front. He's big, he's bold, so let's do the other ones first. Tap, 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 tap. Create a little bit of highlight on those little side trees there. Then we can do the Big Daddy. Big Daddy tree. Touch. Working my way down, little tappies. Skinny little frowns. There we go. Then, what brush haven't I used yet today? I haven't used this 1-inch brush. I'm going to get a little bit of the liquid white. Ooh. There we go. Pull some of it through the yellow, maybe a little yellow ochre, what the heck, or Indian yellow I should say. Add a little green. Maybe, watch this, just a touch of the Prussian blue. Ooh, that really changes the green. Lots of paint right up here on the tips of the bristles. So, let's put a little lacy bush. All these cool little bush effects overlapping the tree. Because we use all that liquid white, it should stick. If you're having a hard time, don't tap it more than once. If it's not coming off with a light touch, get a little more paint or thin it down just a little bit more. We want this to come off nice and lacy. Okay. Nice. Then, I think this is a little different than the reference here, but I'm just going to add a little bit of grass here. Just something growing right to the edge. There we go, something like that. Because what we got going on here, a little bit of cliff action here. So I'm just going to take my knife with some brown on it, pull down. Just creating a little smear, a little smush downward. Then I got a dark sienna titanium white mixture. And I can create a little topper to it. Little indication of a flat space on top. Just pulling sideways is going to make that look right. There we go. Now, if you need to, just clean up that color. Maybe the lightest of highlights on it. We don't want to really overdo it. I took the darkest part of my highlight here and there. I'm just going to graze downward and let that work in. Let it work into the brown so it's not too bright. We want that highlight to definitely be brighter than the vertical bit here. Okay. We got a lot going on here. I tell you what, let's do another one. Second little cliff line here. Just some dark color. That little wooden frame, you just got to kind of mash that in there as you can. Okay. Then our highlight again. Very lightly, I just smear it. If I want to really make it stand out, I add a little bit of white, a little more white to it. Hit it a couple of spots. Create kind of levels here, little steps almost. Liquid white, touch of titanium white. Create some little water lines right here at the base. Try to keep those water lines relatively straight. There we go. A little bit of highlight. Not too much. That was a little too much. So I'm just going to rub it and watch some of it just disappear. Just a brief indication. Okay, well boy, we really worked on that right side, didn't we? Let's just come up here with my big old brush and gonna have a big old mass of trees here. This is just some background color. Quick how that fades and fills in, huh? Just need this just a dark background, and bending those bristles creates all these nice little stick and leaf effects. Maybe we can see a little bit of that mountain through there. Much though, not much. What I'm going to do here, have a little bit of that color left. I have a little bit of color on that brush, and in these spots here where I can just darken that a little bit. There we go. There we are. And so this is just some background stuff so that we can drop in some foreground stuff. Now, if I wanted to, just saying if, a little bit of this light color, not too light, just a little bit, I can put some little brief indications of highlights. Just Just little indications here and there. We'll get into some foreground stuff here in a little bit, just to change up the flavor out there where it's catching the light a little bit. There we go. Lights and darks working together. Because I'm going to go back into my dark. We're going to make some big old trees here. So I get a little bit more of the Van Dyke brown. Drop it right into the fan brush here. We're doing this the easy way. Lots of dark color here. And simply touch, pull down. If it's not the way you like it, grab a little more color, pull down again. Okay, so that's the baby tree. That's the little brother, I think. As long as it looks a little narrower at the top than at the bottom, that's all we're really going for. But now we're going to make Big Daddy here right on down through the mountain. Find the spot that works for you. And just be bold. Put it right on through. Now I know the tendency is to go over this multiple times, but you don't really need to. It will just keep getting lighter the more you go over it. So keep it dark. Once it's dark, call it good. Because we're going to be using rolls of highlight here. Brown, white, little tiny rolls. Now, I don't want to come in too flat, and I just want to touch. Touch, 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 touch. It's best if you just keep the knife moving. Once in a while I wipe and I reload. Let's see if we can see a little better here. Okay. You might need to change it. Add a little bit more of the titanium white. Let's see what that does. As you go here, we're focusing on highlighting the bright spot there would be the right side. Wouldn't you agree? Where the last little bit of light is hitting? Here on the right side. Starts to give it a bark appearance. A little bit more white for that brightest look, a little bit less for the dark look. Now, if you've got really big trees, we can do the trunks a little bit different. That's what I think Bob did in my reference picture here, because he's using that big old 18 by 24 and he made some monsters. But a little bit of the mostly pure white here. Really want to set some of this off, just here and there. A couple of extra bright stuff. Good. And now we'll start making some details here. Using my liner brush, I thin down some of this Van Dyke brown. See that? Pulling it through very, very thin. It's hard to show you here because it does want to drip down. You need it that thin. And we're going to make a few big old branches coming right off here. The great thing about this is a very thin paint. It should stick if you let it flow out of the brush. And reload often. My dad, back in the 70s, he used to do a lot of airbrushing, and he would do gas tanks for motorcycles and some boat hulls and hoods occasionally. So he always liked to practice down in the basement, and we had a refrigerator that was covered in flames, you know, those nice idealized hot rod flames. So that's where I get this idea of making my branches. I'm just kind of thinking of flames. All these little sub branches and baby branches, I think of them as like little licks of fire. And if you're not sure what that looks like, just Google like 70s hot rods or hot rod flames. You see some pretty cool examples. All right, there's a couple of branches on that one. Can't forget this one over here. Want to make sure that we get some variation going on here, some interesting little branches. And now we're going to be covering some of these up, so it's not necessary to keep going over them. Once you get the basic out there, don't try to go over them. This has too much paint thinner for you to fiddle with the same branch. Gotta really let it flow. I'm gonna do the little top of the tree there. Think of these branches as supporting a whole bunch of leaves that we haven't done yet. So, you get some things out there, a couple of short ones, a couple of maybe broken ones, little stubbies here and there. There we go. All right, so I'm gonna need just a tad more of my mountain mixture. I thought I'd be able to get away with it. Unfortunately for me, I put out too much phthalo blue and not enough mountain mixture. So let's make up some of this dark color again. That was mountain mixture with a little bit of the Van Dyke brown, a little bit of the green, and just a hint of the phthalo, Prussian blue. Okay, maybe a little bit more green. Okay. Tap, 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 pull down, tap, tap, tap. Look at that texture forming on my palette space there. Want a lot of texture. So, boom, 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 boom. Clump. The idea is clumps. Create a little clump and move on. Clump, 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 clump. One nice little clump, not just hitting randomly. Think where the branches are supporting some stuff. That's always a good spot to do it. Reload for every clump. You're using a lot more paint on the brush now. Let it come off in a clumpy fashion. This one here, oh, we just gotta be bold. See, it will stick. It will stick. One more, ooh, like right there. Good. And the idea here is it's closer to us, so it's darker and bolder, and just pushes those background trees that I did further back. And, you know, while I have some of this color, maybe we'll have some foreground bushes, so let's just drop in a couple of basic shapes here. Maybe it covers, There we go. Covers those trees up. Really separates the back from the front. Okay, now I'm going to come back here with a little bit of the liquid white. We've got our green, Indian yellow, cadmium yellow, touch of Prussian blue, maybe a little bit of the dark color, I don't know. Let's see what this gets us. Sometimes if the paint is too flat, gather it up. It allows you to load it a little easier. Let's see how this goes. Okay, maybe a little too dark on that one. So as I move forward here, I know I'm going to use a little bit more yellow. A thinner paint, it's got a little bit of that liquid white in it. Really is going to make this stand out. Lots of paint right on the tips of the bristles. I start slightly above the dark and I work my way down. One little clumpy at a time. Working in layers. This one back here. Working my way down. Let some of that shadow remain. That's what makes the highlights stand out. Once you do that, if you want to come back here, like I occasionally do, I come back and with a little bit brighter color, you can zing in a little extra highlight. In a couple of spots here where it's really striking, you want it just a little bit brighter, adds a little extra detail. Boy, I can't even talk today. Just a little bit though. If it's all the exact same color the whole way down, it looks a little flat, a little boring. So if you add just a couple of bright spots to a couple of them, really makes them stand out. There we go. Maybe one last one right okay, so we've got some highlights on our trees, and of course, one more. Can't stop, I can't stop. All right, a little bit of the liquid white. Going back to that 1-inch brush, we're going to make our bushes. Lots of paint, nicely thinned. Give it some taps. Look at that texture there. Well, you know you got a lot of paint. Very lacy looking. Well, I could have used that oval brush to highlight those too, but using a different brush sort of sets it apart from those tree limbs. Letting it work my way down, let it get a little darker and darker, and come back with a little bright one, add another little section. creating layers and layers of these bushes. Nice and lacy. Okay. Then, with our knife, add a little bit of that Van Dyke brown. Let's throw a little bit of rock in here. Just sort of help create a complementary look from on the right side here and the left side. Just smearing a little bit of that brown down like that. Come in with my highlight color, graze it over. Let some of that brown remain. There we go. And with a little bit of this highlight on my fan brush, I do a little mashy mash, creating some grassy highlights in and around and in front of. There we go. That gets really fun to do. And just like that, we've got pretty much a finished painting. What do we have left? I think maybe another little ripple back here makes sense. Maybe a couple in the front here. And of course, a couple of sticks and twigs. I think we've got ourselves a completed painting. All right, so my second video here of 2024. Let's thin down a little bit of white, and I'm going to put my little signature there, a little T, a little S. It's really hard to see. Get a little bit more paint on the brush, and that way I can do my 2 and a 4. Light touch, light touch, light touch, 4. There we are. All right, with that being said, thank you guys for watching. I need a haircut. I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.